What's up, guys? Dave Lipson here with another episode of Q&A with Dave, the series where you guys, the Thunderbro community, get to ask me any questions with regard to training, nutrition, or lifestyle to help you thrive, optimize, and bring some fucking thunder to your training and your life. So this week's question comes from one of our athletes, Valtteri, and I've been holding on to this one because when he asked this question, I told him, hey man, I'm going to make you a video because I'm sure that there are a lot of other athletes in our community that would be interested in the answer to this question. So Valtteri's question was understanding if hypertrophy training has a positive effect on top end strength, or if I could summarize it better, does hypertrophy training improve my top end strength? If I lift things for repetition and am targeting increasing muscle size, will that translate into a bigger 1 rep max deadlift, back squat, clean? You fill in the blank, okay? And the answer is most likely yes, okay? And I'm going to give you kind of the context of the landscape, and I want to translate some words here for you first. So when we refer to top end strength, what we're referring to is usually the most weight an athlete can lift, usually for a single repetition. So the way people train for this exclusively is by lifting usually as heavy as they possibly can or as fast as they possibly can. This is great for developing really strong neurology for how the brain communicates with the muscles, for intra and intramuscular coordination to fire motor units harder, more synchronously, so that they can move the weight. You can think about that neurology really like software in a computer, like learning how to use the machine more efficiently. Hypertrophy training, on the other hand, is just focusing on the machine, like increasing the size and the potential that you have to then apply that neurology too. And it's usually done not at really high percentages like 90% or above like you see with top end strength training. It's usually done in percentage ranges anywhere from 60 to 80%, or anywhere from 8 to maybe 15 repetitions, kind of as a sweet spot most of the time. Whereas we also deviate from that spectrum and do ultra high reps at lower percentages, maybe lower reps at some higher percentages, and then incorporate other things like holds. And really the root of hypertrophy is creating enough tension on muscles, enough time under tension to be able to get that hypertrophic effect where we see a bulking and thickening of the tissue that makes you bigger. Pretty cool, right? Physicality, love it. So where is the overlap? Well, usually we see an increase in strength with an increase in size because mass moves mass. There's one reason, right? When you're bigger and stronger, usually you can move more. Zoe agrees with me. She's trying to chime in. But that's kind of the basic premise, right? Bigger is usually stronger. Now, there always are exceptions. You're going to see smaller guys that can outlift bigger guys because they have just outstanding neurology. But at the same time, if that is a smaller athlete, we can then make the hypothesis that if I took that same athlete and made them bigger, they would get even stronger because they have more potential to tap into, right? More contractile potential. So, how does experience and training, what you've been doing or what your goals are, kind of play into this? If you're an athlete, and I think a lot of us in this community are this type of athlete who's had some exposure to top end lifting, like you've tested your 1 rep max at some point in your career, your past, or close to your present, whatever. You've touched a 1 rep max before, you know what that's like. Or you've done things, really fast and explosively to try to build that neurology. When we put you through hypertrophy training for a period and you go back to that, oftentimes our athletes are very surprised how, although they never lifted at very high percentages, they're now able to lift more than they could before at that 1 rep max because that neurology didn't go away. It's still there. The wiring is still there. We're just not using it as much as we did before because we're targeting physical adaptations, okay? Now, here's the benefit to that. When we spend time doing a lot of hypertrophy, not only are we increasing our contractile potential, but we're also staying out of the danger zone a lot of the time. And I can speak just from my personal experience and the stories I've heard from our hundreds of athletes out there. Speed and load are the high-risk players when it comes to weightlifting, right? Because that's when There's a lot of force going through your body very suddenly when you may get pulled out of position, and where joint alignment can kind of go astray, and that's where you hear popping, ouch, owies, injuries. No, thank you. Okay. I've been on the surgery table before. My wife has. A lot of our other athletes have. Everyone has their bumps and bruises. And the longer you train, the more you accumulate these things. So hypertrophy training, in my view, is the cure to that, where instead of breaking things down, we're trying to fortify things. We're trying to fortify critical joints that may be prone to injury. We're staying out of dangerous percentage ranges where there's a higher propensity for getting hurt. And we're spending time moving slowly and deliberately to hold proper positions so that we can minimize that risk as much as possible while simultaneously fortifying those things. Okay, so that's great. The other great thing about it is the training effect. The training effect is you get bigger, right? The muscle size is larger, and the adaptations at the cellular level are actually really important, because in addition to just like the bulking and thickening of fibers that increases the cross-sectional strength or the ability to handle force, you also see adaptations like myogenesis in hypertrophy, where the myosin and actin proteins that link up with each other and pull on the muscle to allow it to contract, they start to get damaged and they heal and remodel, thicker and more numerous, which gives you a greater potential to contract it harder or create more tension on that muscle, i.e., that's why you're stronger when you get bigger, because your muscles have the capacity to handle more, and that's a physical adaptation. The best blend of this is getting a little exposure to the top end strength work. So if you look at our Power Anarchy program, what we do, I believe it's a 4-day-week program, is there's a main lift, right? There's one lift, and it's usually done as fast as you can or as heavy as you can. It's a conjugate method type of style where you're either doing something really dynamic and working on technique and speed, that's neurological, or you're lifting as heavy as you possibly can. Again, that's neurological too, with slower contractile speeds. But after that main lift, it's all hypertrophy work. Okay. And this would probably be something for athletes who are interested in either competing in powerlifting or Olympic lifting, or it's just important to them to PR. They want to PR the big lift. Risk and reward here. I personally love doing the Pure Muscle Anarchy program, where you blend advanced bodybuilding concepts with functional movements. I feel functional and fit and still have a general fitness capacity, but I love the aesthetic it delivers, and I feel way stronger because I'm lifting bigger weights. I mean, gosh, in Muscle Anarchy, I'm now able to do for 10 reps what previously I could do for 1 rep. So, the proof is in the pudding here, Volteri, okay? You guys out there, every blue moon, we might test a 1 rep max, and most people are PRing and they're shocked. They go, wow, that was easy. Or they're shocked that they did it and they didn't experience pain and maybe some previous injuries. And that's because, like I said, the neurology is there, but building the physical body is where it's at. So yes, definitely a correlation there. And depending on how fast you want to see those top end strength gains can influence the specific style of training that you're doing. But in my view, whatever it is you're doing, hypertrophy is the foundation. Hypertrophy is building your physical body, and then you can train it, the neurology, to do whatever you want, whatever the task is. Olympic lifting, strongman, doesn't really matter. But you have the hardware, and the hardware is really important because that's what gives you the potential to express your athleticism. Thanks for tuning in. That's Q&A with Dave. Hit us up with more questions and I'll give you more answers, and we will see you next time.